Hello, everybody. Hopefully you can all hear me now, and thanks so much for coming to today's British Council Career Chats webinar. Hopefully you're in the right place. This is focusing on the creative industries. So today's webinar is actually part of a series that we're running at the British Council called Career Chats with Study UK, and each month we're going to focus in on a different sector. So today is creative industries, and then we have others on business and management, engineering and manufacturing, and more. So we'll be in touch about those afterwards in case they're of interest to some of you. My name is Helen Etheridge, and I'm the British Council's Higher Education Lead for the EU region. And I'm speaking to you today from a very snowy London. And I have colleagues on the line as well who will be joining us in a little bit, and I will introduce those. So the purpose of today's event really is to showcase how a UK education could prepare you for working in the creative industries, either in the UK or maybe in another country, your home country or elsewhere. And we're really hoping that lots of you joining this webinar today will be considering perhaps studying creative subjects here in the UK. And also, of course, considering a career in the sector as well. If we move through to our slides, and I'll take you through the agenda for this next hour and who we have speaking with us as well. So first up, I'm very pleased that we are inviting today some sector representatives and university representatives as well. So you will, after hearing from me, hear from Karen Brodie, who is partner at Counterculture, and she's going to talk to us about what the creative industries are really, and the skills and qualifications that are needed in the sector. We'll then be joined by UK universities, both Goldsmiths and Falmouth, to hear about how UK universities and higher education institutions prepare students for working in the creative industries. So we're pleased to be joined by Sophie Farmer from the Goldsmiths University of London and Adrian Marriott Mills, who is at Falmouth University. And then we'll have some alumni experience from somebody who's actually done this. So she studied in the UK and is now working in the sector. And we'll be joined by Simona Codrocariu, who is actually in Romania and is going to talk to us about her work. And then there will be a Q&A session. So please do put any questions you have into the Q&A box, and we will try to come to those at the end. If one of my colleagues, maybe Semra, if you could just confirm that the slides are up for everybody to see.
It will be shortly.
Great. Thank you. They'll just come through for everybody in a second. So before I hand over to our other speakers, I'd like to just say a few words about the UK really, and how it's a good place for you to not only to study cultural subjects, but actually to have that cultural experience alongside your studies as well. So if we move on to that slide there, this is really just to say that no matter where you study in the UK, you're sure to be in for a great experience, whether you're interested in theatre, film, literature, music, sport as well. There's certainly something for everybody. And that's true if you're studying in a more urban environment or somewhere further outside a city as well. Another thing I wanted to mention as well, if we move on to the next slide, was around the graduate route visa in the UK. So I don't know if you've heard of this already, and perhaps your graduation may feel a long way away at this point, but there are options for you to remain in the UK after you finish your degree. So the UK government recently launched a new policy, as I say, called the graduate route visa, and this allows international students to apply to stay in the UK for up to 2 years after you finish your degree. Or if you're doing a PhD, you'll be able to stay for up to 3 years. And it's an exciting opportunity for all international students that can help you take your next steps into employment here in the UK and really help you to stand out, not only having had that study experience in the UK, but also the work experience as well. If you want any more information on this, do check out the Study UK website. We have a section on there all about the graduate route visa. If we move on to the next slide, the other bit I wanted to mention was actually working alongside your studies while you're here doing your studies in the UK. So if you're over 16, which lots of you will be, and you have the right visa, it's relatively easy to find a part-time job whilst studying. So for most courses and with the necessary visa, you'll be able to work for up to 20 hours during term time. But before you consider looking for work, just make sure that you do check your visa and the necessary paperwork to make sure that you do have that allowance in there to allow you to work during term time. And also check the rules of your UK university as well, just to make sure that there aren't any restrictions around there. Because, for example, some universities prefer that you work inside the student campus, but for the most part, you will be able to explore different working options. So those are the main bits I wanted to mention at the beginning. Do check out the Study UK website or the Study UK social channels for more information. And without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Karen now, who's from Counterculture, and she's going to be talking to us about the creative industries as a sector. So Karen, over to you. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Helen. Hi, everyone. I'm Karen. I'm a partner at Counterculture, as Helen said. I work as a consultant across higher education and the creative industries. And I started my career working in the creative industries in publishing in both large and small companies, and then as an arts programmer across music, fashion, design, film, visual arts and performing arts. I've led arts and science programmes at universities, and most recently I've worked on a range of projects covering cultural strategies, gaming, intellectual property, and significantly how universities can prepare students for their careers in the creative industries. So I'm going to give a quick introduction to the sector now. So firstly, what are we talking about when we say the creative industries? I think my first slide is up there. So the UK's Department of Digital Culture, Media and Sport defines the creative industries as the list that you can see here. So advertising and marketing, architecture, crafts, design, fashion, film, TV, video, radio and photography, IT, software and computer services, publishing, museums, galleries and libraries, and music, performing and visual arts. So hopefully you can spot there the subject that you're interested in. And within this list, there is also other terms that you might associate with the creative industries, like gaming, which would fall under IT and computer services, and media, which might come under TV and publishing, and then heritage and festivals and events and production. So there's a whole range of aspects to it. It's an innovative and dynamic sector, and it has a reputation for going beyond boundaries. And new technologies are changing how creative works are being produced and shared, and the sector needs brilliant graduates to take it forward. And why are the creative industries so important? So if we can move on to the next slide, please. Thank you. Here I've got some data from the UK as just an example, but these will of course be different in your home countries. So firstly, the creative industries employs about 2.3 million people in the UK. And between 2011 and 2019, the sector grew twice as fast as the rest of the UK economy as a whole. And the rapid growth of the creative industries is occurring in many countries across the world. Around 95% of creative companies are micro businesses, and micro businesses have fewer than 10 people. And the advantage of this for graduates means that if you're working in those companies, you're more likely to be working closely with managing directors and quickly picking up new skills and expanding your remit. And almost 1/3 of the creative workforce is freelance, which is much higher than in other sectors. So this is typical of artists, performers and producers, but it could also be administrators too. And while many people enjoy the flexibility of being self-employed, there are also plenty of large and international companies who recruit graduates. 83% of creative occupations are higher level occupations. So this means that the vast majority of roles in the sector are at a high level, both in professional and technical roles. So they're managers, directors and senior officers. So there are lots of opportunities to stay in the sector and to progress. 17% of the graduate population in the UK are creative graduates, but they represent 46% of graduates working in the creative industries. So most creative graduates are going to go into jobs in the creative industries, and 72% of the creative workforce have a degree or a higher level qualification. What types of jobs are there? Next slide, thank you. There are, of course, the creative jobs, the designers and artists, writers, performers, choreographers, musicians, and many, many others, where specialist degrees from higher education institutions will develop students' creative and technical skills, and also their reflective and critical and contextual practices. But for a thriving creative industry, many other roles are needed as well. So communications and marketing to promote the work and engage audiences. And these roles are also very creative, using different platforms and storytelling techniques. There's project management to lead complex projects with many moving parts, like an exhibition or a film festival. Creative projects need someone who can keep the work moving forward and resolve problems and meet deadlines. There's client management. Having a good relationship with the person who has commissioned the work is key. And business strategy, so someone with the talent to understand market opportunities and to grow the business. Analytics, this might be analysing data about audiences or customers to inform decisions about the direction of the company, or it could be behavioural analytics on how people respond to creative work or how they use the websites, for example. And this is a growing area within the creative industries. Universities in the UK recognise the need for students on creative courses to develop these sorts of business skills as well as their artistic practices. And many creative courses will include modules on business planning or projects with clients or contact with industry professionals, as this will equip students with the wider skills that they'll need for working in the creative sector. One of the most interesting areas for me is where the creative industries meets other sectors. So Createch, for example, is where creativity meets technology, bringing together designers and artists with virtual reality, artificial intelligence, and other emerging technologies. This sort of technology is being used, for example, in serious gaming, where game developers are working with other industries like agriculture, journalism, or engineering to simulate scenarios for research and development. And there are other developing cross-sectoral areas too. The benefits of the arts on health and well-being is now widely acknowledged, and it's shaping a whole new area of work that needs skilled graduates. So there are new courses in the undergraduate and postgraduate levels that offer interdisciplinary studies, combining creativity with other sectors like health and politics. And then finally, the creative industries, like other sectors, relies on the expertise of professionals in finance, HR, IT, law, and many other areas. So a creative degree is not the only route into the sector. So there are, of course, the roles for those who study animation, graphic design, fashion photography, librarianship, and all the range of other creative degrees. But innovative companies are also actively looking for those who have marketing, business studies, computer studies, or science degrees to bring in other skills to a fast-changing and forward-looking sector. The creative sector is very exciting and it continues to thrive, and new opportunities will emerge as the sector evolves, and they'll require new skills and new ways of thinking, and creative employers are looking for graduates who are passionate, have transferable skills, and will be committed to keep learning. So I'll hand back to Helen now for the next presentation.
Thanks very much, Karen, for that overview, and I'm sure some of the audience may have questions later, so if you're able to stay with us for those, that would be fantastic. We're now going to move on to hear from UK universities themselves. So we're going to be joined firstly by Sophie Farmer from Goldsmiths. So Sophie, if you're there, we'll invite you up next, and I'm sure Semra will get those slides up for us. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. It's lovely to be joining you this afternoon from wherever you're joining us from. My name's Sophie. I work at Goldsmiths University of London, which is known for being quite an arts creative institution. Our most popular courses are art and design. I'm going to be talking to you just for a short while about the types of services that universities provide you when it comes to careers advice and also employability, and looking at your graduate route once you have finished your degree. So at all universities in the UK, you're going to find a department, and they all might have slightly different names, but generally they're going to be your careers service, so careers advice and looking at employability. And they're there to ensure that you're making the most of opportunities whilst you're at university and preparing you for, once you graduate, looking at getting a job afterwards. But not only that, supporting you in finding opportunities in getting a job whilst you're at university and developing certain skill sets. So as an example, some of the services that these departments provide at university are such things like employability talks, workshops and courses. So for example, you might have identified that a career or a sector that you're interested in, it might require public speaking skills, for example. It could be that you need to work on project management skills if you're going to be looking after an arts budget, for example. So there are various workshops and courses that you can attend, put on by the career services, to ensure that you're developing the specific skill sets that you need. It might also be certain skills like Excel for budget management. It could be presentation skills, for example. We also have one-to-one consultations, which these career services will provide you. So that's meeting with a professional careers consultant in order to have a conversation about what are your hopes and dreams, what is it that you're potentially aiming for when it comes to graduating, and how can they best support you in identifying areas maybe that you need improvement in, or areas where maybe you need a bit more experience in the work sector. These services also provide CV checking, for example. If you haven't heard of a CV before, this is normally a document that companies ask for, which outlines your education, it outlines your employment history so far, and it also highlights the particular skill sets that you want to tell these companies that you have and that you would be able to bring to a job. So you can bring your CV into the career service and they will read over it and make sure that it's looking absolutely top notch, ready to be sent out to various different companies. Career services at universities in the UK quite often also provide practice interviews. These are incredibly crucial because if you've been invited to an interview, normally you can take the job spec of the job that you've applied for, and you can take this into the career service and they will build a practice interview based on the job spec that you've brought in. And it's a really good way of identifying and getting some real life feedback on how you're performing in that interview, and getting tips on how potentially to improve as well. Also, areas such as aptitude checks and personality questionnaires, these are quite good for students who maybe aren't quite yet sure of what they want to do once they graduate, or they're not quite sure what direction they want to go in. Sometimes these types of tests and questionnaires are really good at identifying particular areas of your personality or your work ethic where actually it can lead you in a certain direction. So the questionnaire might identify that you're actually really happy when it comes to public speaking, you're quite happy to be in a public facing role. It might be a questionnaire that identifies that you're really good with certain audiences. You might be really good with working with children or have a real joy for that. So they're really good at then helping to identify, okay, what type of work experience could we give you, or what types of jobs should you apply for that really match who you are? So this is just an example of some of the services that the careers department at whichever university you might be interested in would most likely be able to provide you. If I could pop onto the next slide, please. Hopefully you've heard of some of this terminology before, but when you go to university, there are opportunities for work placements, internships and volunteering. And this is really crucial for any type of sector you might be interested in having opportunities to develop those professional skills. So with work placements, there are different ways you can go about getting a placement at university. This all comes down to research, depending on which university and what course you're interested in. But some universities offer degrees with a placement year added into the degree, and we often call these sandwich years. So year 1 and year 2 would be at the university studying. Year 3, you would actually then be in a company related to your subject area and the sector that you're interested in, working with other professionals for that year. And then your 4th year would be back at university, working on your dissertation. Normally, placements or placement years or even a placement semester is accredited and linked to your course. So your module tutor, your academics, as well as the career service are able to help prepare you in hopefully finding the right match and the right placement for you as well. Internships are opportunities that you can take outside of your academic degree. So normally we have students who participate in internships during the summer period. If you don't know, in the UK, the summer months for a student are quite long. They're around 12 weeks long, so about 3 months. So these are fantastic opportunities to take. So having that period of time to go and reach out to a company to do an internship. So again, this could be between 1 or 3 months long. It could be a couple of weeks over Christmas or potentially Easter as well, using those student breaks and working with a company and building networks. And then, of course, we have volunteering opportunities, which your careers department quite often will have an internal platform, for example, online, listing various opportunities that you can be involved in. This could be volunteering in the UK, for example. It could be in your local community, but it also could be looking at volunteering opportunities abroad. Now, when I talk about placements, just to give a couple of examples, at Goldsmiths, if you're a design student, we have a placement module that you're able to participate in. So for a semester, you will actually receive credits for working with a company. So you wouldn't be on campus working, you'd actually be working with a company for that semester. So we've had students work with Burberry, we've had students work at the Horniman Museum in London. We've also had students have placements at Google, for example. So there are many opportunities to explore in different sectors and different companies who you can engage with as well. And if we could just pop on to the next slide, please. When you're doing your research about the types of courses you might be interested in, specifically arts courses in the UK, it's really important that you're doing your research to find out what types of facilities do these universities offer me and what will I get as a student. So lots of universities will have different types of facilities that you as a student can engage with. Now, I'm going to provide some examples for Goldsmiths. So our music students at Goldsmiths, we have 3 different music courses. We have music rehearsal studios spaces, which students can book out, because it's incredibly important that they do have that self-independent study time to make sure that they're able to practice and work on their craft. We also have NX Records, which is our very own recording studio on campus, where students can release EPs and music through that service as well. We have the George Wood Theatre, which just had a £3 million refurb. So for our theatre students, it's fantastic that they're able to use this space, having the best out of the lighting kit that they're able to use, and really important that they've got that standard industry equipment to work with. If you're an art or design student at Goldsmiths, from day one, you have your own art studio space. So this is where you'll be creating all of your own work, and it's a shared collaborative space with second years and third years. So you can also get a peek at what you might be working on in second year and third year. So this just gives you an example that different universities are going to have different spaces and facilities. And whilst you're doing your research, really important to find out about what different institutions would provide you as a student studying a particular subject area. So that's it from me. I'm now going to pass over to Adrian from Falmouth University. He's going to talk a bit more about what universities provide with regards to career support.
Thank you so much, Sophie. That was great. My name's Adrian Marriott Mills, and I work at Falmouth University, which is a creative specialist university located in Cornwall, which is in the very southwest of England. We've been teaching creative subjects for over 120 years. So carrying on from what Sophie had to say, creative universities often offer excellent links with industry leaders, and often the students have the opportunity to work on what are known as live industry briefs. Now, these are live and real business challenges, which allow students to solve problems and come up with solutions with real commercial outcomes. So if you could just share the slides, yes, they are being shared. So what you can see here on the screen is an example that I wanted to share with you. So recently an organization called Safer Cornwall challenged Falmouth University creative advertising students to produce a creative campaign to promote behavior change and encourage active bystander interventions. And this was done in support of the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, which you might have seen some information about it in the press. It's an annual international campaign led by the United Nations, and it ran this year from the 25th of November to the 10th of December. So what you can see in the picture here is a picture of current Falmouth creative advertising student Justina from Poland. You can see an example of her work. So her concept focused on the positive impact of bystander interventions and incorporated her real life experiences of receiving help by bystander intervention. So what she was able to do was to gain real industry skills and build her portfolio by contributing to this really important social justice issue. Next slide, please. So many people, as was mentioned, who work in the creative industries are self-employed, or they run their own businesses, or they work freelance. And universities often provide help to students who want to get started doing this through what's known as a business incubator. Now, business incubators are designed to help startup and early stage businesses to grow and thrive. They can be physical, they can be virtual, or they can be hybrid. And their support might involve access to networks, investors, or mentors, or co-working spaces alongside other businesses and experienced professionals. So at Falmouth University, for example, we have our very own in-house incubator called Launchpad Venture Studio, and this offers entrepreneurs an opportunity to work on building the companies of tomorrow, supported by experienced coaches, entrepreneurs in residence, and mentors. So startup entrepreneurs also have the opportunity, if they want, to work towards an MSc in entrepreneurship while starting and growing their business in a supportive environment. Next slide, please. So some universities also have what are known as in-house agencies, which allow students to take on paid work around their subject of choice, which in helps them to build their commercial portfolio while studying. Again, at Falmouth, for example, we have several in-house agencies, one of which is called Maine, which is our in-house photographic agencies. And students can take on paid work from commercial clients, but they're supported by the university. So if they run into any difficulties or challenges fulfilling their commercial brief, then the university will step in and ensure that everything runs smoothly for them. Next slide, please. So creative universities don't just teach you, but they also help you to launch a great career. And in many cases, a substantial part of the final undergraduate year is spent getting ready for industry. We heard already about modules that are focused on employability, and we do this at Falmouth. For example, our illustration graduates at the end of last year had the opportunity to go to New York and show their portfolio to over 30 potential clients, including the New York Times, Penguin Books, HarperCollins, and the Wall Street Journal. And these organizations have commissioned a number of students over previous years. So all of our third year students at Falmouth undertake this module on employability that specifically prepares them for what lies beyond graduation. Next slide, please. So the creative industries are very collaborative in nature, so it's important that creative students learn to work collaboratively. And this is one of the key skills that's embedded into the way art and design and other creative courses are taught in the UK. Again, using a personal example, I went to the fashion show last year that the students put on, but it wasn't just the fashion students who made the clothes. Of course, the fashion marketing students conceived of the event, the fashion photography students captured it, even the architecture students got involved with building the set. So this is what I mean by collaboration, that we help our students in a practical way to understand how collaboration will help them to navigate their way more successfully through their career. And the connections that students make at university will often last them a career lifetime. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Adrian. It's great to hear about the tuition, but also the practical element of the courses at both institutions. So thanks to Sophie and to Adrian there. We now move on to an experience from an alumna of a UK university. So we're now going to move to Simona, who actually did study at Falmouth and is going to be telling us a little bit about her experience and what she's up to now. So Simona, if you're there, I will ask you a few questions, if that's okay. So first up, would you mind just starting by telling us a bit about yourself and where you're from and what you're up to these days?
Hi everyone, I'm Simona. I'm from Romania and I work as a freelance artist for video games and animation with a focus on background painting and environment design.
And whereabouts are you based at the moment, Simona? I'm sure people will be interested to know.
At the moment, I'm based in Bucharest, in Romania.
Great, thanks very much. So you've travelled back home to carry on your work from the UK.
Yes, I did. With the whole COVID thing, I went back home, then we went into lockdown, and the beauty of being freelance in creative industries is that you can work from home from anywhere in the world. So my
Absolutely.
project at the moment is with a French company, so it's no issue with the timeline and the fact that you're not based necessarily where you do your work in.
Absolutely. It's similar for us in the British Council as well, working across borders and often from home. My next question was, if you wouldn't mind sharing with us a bit about what and where you studied. I mentioned you studied at Falmouth, but I'd be interested to hear a bit more about that, and specifically why you ended up choosing the UK and how you choose, how you chose your institution and the course that you studied. So if you could tell us a bit about your time in the UK.
Yeah, so I studied animation and visual effects at Falmouth. And the way I went about choosing the university was, so I've been drawing since I was young. I had a passion for art. And later on, I decided I want to study animation. And the thing that a university degree can offer you is access to the software, the facilities, the professionals in the industry. So I looked at what course would fit me the most. And what I liked about Falmouth was that the film school in there is actually part of the International Association of Cinema Schools. So it's a huge deal, and all of the lecturers there are professionals that have worked and are working in the industry, and all of the facilities are just great. And plus, the degree is recognized anywhere in the world. So I also looked at where the people, the professionals in animation and in film are from and what schools they studied at, and the UK just kept coming up. So I narrowed down to UK and then chose Falmouth because of the great course, but also because it's next to the sea. So it was very inspiring, and it was perfect to spend 2 years there and just working on your portfolio and making memories.
That's actually a really good tip, because I think people, quite rightly look at the course content or the rankings of a university or things like this, but actually I think it's really important to look at location as well. You somebody like Simona who's interested in being by the sea, by nature, in a smaller town, but maybe you prefer to be in a city. So definitely take that into account, like Simona did. Simona, could I ask next how you did your research? You mentioned that you saw some people in the industry that you were interested in had studied in the UK and at this institution. Where did you go for your research? Did you Google? Did you go to the institution website? I mean, did you have somebody in your school helping you? It'd be interesting to know.
So we had those events. There's one in Bucharest that I actually worked when I was a student at Falmouth. I went back and worked at. It's called RIU, which is where different universities from the UK come and they present their program, and that's where I learned about Falmouth. And then I just Googled, went to the university's websites, then went that led me to YouTube and so on.
No, understood. I know we all have different paths, but that's really helpful, and I think a good tip for everybody on the line to look out for these kinds of events in their own cities. And maybe if you could share with us a little bit about how you found the application process. I'm sure you had to do some special things which wouldn't be the same if you were going to study history, for example. Would you mind sharing, if you can remember, some of what you needed to do?
It was so long ago, yeah. Right. Oh, it was a long process. Because it started off with a personal statement where you basically have to describe why you want to study the subject. And I know it sounds scary, but it's actually just you talking about the subject that you're passionate about. And I remember to this day, I was talking to my lecturers when I graduated, and he said he really liked my personal statement. I said something of like, if Leonardo da Vinci could still would be alive today, I'm sure he would study like animation and just take art to that digital level, because I was really interested into that. So and then after the personal statement, I had to submit a portfolio. And the beauty of Falmouth was that you could submit fine art. So that means drawings on paper, even though my course involved programs like Photoshop and 3D programs. But they understand that you don't necessarily have the money for them, access to graphic tablets. So they are able to look at your passion and your potential from just the drawings on paper. And then they also said that it's better for you to learn everything there rather than come in with it's hard to unlearn something, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely.
So you can try to like teach yourself things and then learn them wrong, and then you have to spend time to unlearn them. So they really like to start us all with as blank canvases and from zero and go together as a group. So I really like that as well, because I didn't have any animations in my portfolio, and I got in. So
yeah, and I think that's really promising for I'm sure others on the call as well, that you don't necessarily, you're not supposed to know it all before you go. That's why you're going to learn.
Now that you mentioned it, I just remembered how stressed I was about that. And now I look back and I'm like,
you needn't have
been.
Yeah, I'm sure we can speak to the universities on the line in a little bit if people have questions about the application process. But for now, Simona, if you wouldn't mind telling us just, I don't know, a bit about your memories of the UK, whether it be your course or what you did in your free time. What sort of sticks out for you when you think back to that time?
Oh, there's so many great things. So many dear memories. So I think the best thing were my classmates and the sense of the community that we all had, because you're surrounded by peers that are your age and are passionate about the same things, and you're all in this together, because you can learn things by taking online classes, but sometimes you're surrounded by people that don't understand your passion, they don't have the same interest, and you will feel very lonely. And what the university experience gives you is people that support you, people that are in there with you. You all go through the deadlines together, and I still keep in touch with them. And I saw them recently at an animation festival this summer, and it was great. Yeah, so all of the memories that we had with them, especially my third year, I directed a short animated film. So we worked on that film in a team for the whole year. We spent days, nights, weekends in the studio together. And then when we submitted it, we would go out to celebrate, we'd go to spoons. It was just so great. And then because we were at the sea, we could have barbecues on the beach, and it was just such a lovely time. And on a more professional level, what really sticks out to me to this day are the guest lecturers. So Falmouth would often invite really big names from the industry. We had John Stevenson, the director of Kung Fu Panda, who came and looked at our animatics. So an animatic is like the skeleton of your film before you go and make it. So we presented that, and to have someone, such a big name, look at your work and say, oh, that works, that's good, that's not, you should improve on that. And so besides the course, we had all these workshops, these storytelling workshops, the light drawing workshops were also great. Honestly, every week was so full of events and things. So definitely flew by.
It sounds really great. I suppose building on that, are there any other aspects that you would say from your time at university in the UK that have supported you in the work that you're doing now? So you mentioned those links in with important people in the industry, the workshops. Was there anything else in particular that you kind of look back on and you realize it's helped you get to where you are?
Yes, so many things. Honestly, what I'm doing now is not that different from what I did in the university. It's so similar. And where do I start? The most important thing, and Adrian mentioned it as well, is the ability to work with other people on projects, especially in an industry as animation. You can make films or video games by yourself. You have to work with other people. So the fact that it was really emphasized that you have to pick a role and then work with them and understand that other people are better at other things and you can make great things together. Because the way I was taught before my university experience was that maybe I had to make everything by myself and try to maybe be more competitive, but that's just not true, and it doesn't work like that in the real world. So definitely the ability to work with other people on projects, how the industry works. So every creative industry has a pipeline of doing things, and you have access to that pipeline, understanding how you get to the final product, what are the roles. So working on briefs with real clients while we were doing our modules really helped with that. We had a module where we had people from, I think it was the police from Cornwall, and there were a few clients, and you would pick a brief and then work with that. And besides your lectures, you'd have to present the clients your work as well. And I started doing freelance while I was in uni from the summer of my second year, and from my third year, I think I started working with Main Creative. So that was an more life brief that I did that just taught me how to present the work and talk to clients, and yeah.
So practical, and I suppose you're a good example then of what I was saying earlier about working alongside your studies and boosting your your CV in that way, and also your experience, I suppose, of your time in the UK. I'm intrigued, Simona, a couple of things. I mean, your English is so fantastic. I imagine you were speaking it before you came, but how was that? If you hadn't studied so much in English before, how was that coming to the UK and having to do that every day? And secondly, again, an assumption, but if you were studying in Romania before, how did you find those sort of cultural differences or differences in the education system? Would you mind reflecting on that a little bit?
Yes, I will. I remember I was really shy in the beginning. I didn't speak as much, but then realizing how nice everyone is, and especially the fact that the course was so practical. So it's really focused. It was really focused on doing a good film, building a good portfolio, learning the software. So it wasn't so focused on writing essays, even though we had to write a dissertation and that history of animation part, but we all kind of just ignored it. So I think, especially with creative industries, no one should worry about that. All people care about is your portfolio, and everyone is so nice. We made friends so easily, all of us, because working on this project, you spend a lot of time with those people. So yeah, you just you relax. After a while, you relax.
That's
even if,
good
yeah,
for
even
everyone
if
to hear.
it may take you a month or two, but talking with everyone that I met at university, we're all saying that even though you meet people outside your courses, by the end of the third year, it's your classmates that become your best friends, because they're the ones you're spending the most time with.
Especially in your case where you were doing projects together, I suppose that's...
Yeah, especially, but I think a lot of the courses at Falmouth are like that, because my best friend was doing fashion and she was spending just as much time in the studio doing the clothes, and She would sometimes ask me to come and try them on because she needed a model for the measurement. So yeah, and there's that collaborative aspect of it as well. For animation, we often needed actors to do our voiceovers. We needed people from sound design and music to do some of our soundtracks for the films. So it was fun to meet people that way. We put out an email to their school and be like, anyone interested in like helping out? And they would come to the studio and we'd all work together. So we made friends that way as well. So yeah, I really liked how the whole city was sort of the campus. You would go into town or on the beach and everyone was just a student. So I really liked that. It felt so safe and nice.
That's really important. And again, another thing for people to consider, you know, in terms of where they're looking to study. Okay, just a couple more questions from me, and then we'll see if the audience have questions as well. I suppose the first question is there anything that you wish you had known before traveling to the UK? Like any tips that you would give to new students? And then finally, I'd be interested to know sort of, I suppose it varies a lot, but an ordinary day in your life as a freelancer, what that sort of looks like. But yeah, is there anything you wish you'd known before you came to the UK?
Yeah, right. So many tips. First of all, there are so many jobs, and the one that I recommend the most, the one that I did, is being an ambassador, a unibody. I don't know if it changed because it's been a few years, but yeah, every university in UK, I think, has these ambassador jobs that I didn't know about. We don't have them here in Romania, where you basically work for the university and you go to the events, you take people on open days and do campus tours, and it pays really well. So that's the best job that you can get. And I wish I knew about it because I was a bit stressed about, oh, but I'll have to go and look for a job during the summer. And that's really intimidating. But then the unibody one just sort of like dropped on me. So it was, I was lucky. And right, another thing about traveling, because the best universities are maybe far away. So with Cornwall, that's really, really far away. And I had to travel to London every time I needed to fly back home. And sometimes you were not able to find the train or you're booking last minute. And I want to say that there are plenty of buses that you can take for those routes, and they're very safe as well. What else? I think those were my biggest fear, sort of the traveling, because I was moving by myself at such a young age in a new country. So I was scared about traveling alone, but it was super safe. And then, yeah, just the idea of having to look for a job, and again, that sort of
understandable. It'll be quite, quite intimidating when you're new in a new country. Okay, and then finally, would you mind just telling us a little bit, about your work? I'm sure people will be interested to hear.
Right. So, well, to put it simply, I draw all day, and I draw different things, different days. I get feedback on them. Once it's approved, I move on to the next thing. It depends on the client. It depends on the project. It differs, but it's very fun, and it's very. Sometimes I just start drawing at 8 a.m. and I keep drawing until midnight. And when I take breaks, I draw for myself. So I always look for projects that speak to me and that I like. So that's a big thing. Put in your portfolio things that you actually want to do. So yeah,
sounds like you found something that suits you.
Yeah, so you want to be hired to, for example, draw the stuff that you want to draw. So if you don't want to draw something, maybe don't have it there in the portfolio. Like,
sure.
And then the right project would come to you.
Thank you, Simona. We've kept you there for a while on the camera, so thanks so much for sharing all your experience with us.
No, it's okay.
Really, really Really appreciate it. And people in the audience, we have 10 minutes left. So if you do have any questions specifically for Simona or for our other speakers, please do put them in the Q&A box and we'll try to address those in the last few minutes that we have. So thanks again to Simona. I might ask maybe from Falmouth, Adrian, and then to Sophie, if there was anything you wanted to say at this moment in terms of application to your institutions, what people should be aware of. Now might be a good time. So I might go to Adrian first.
Yes, certainly. So, I mean, in terms of applying to Falmouth, one of the most important things, and I think it came up in what Simona had to say, is that we accept people from all subject backgrounds. And just because you haven't necessarily had the opportunity to study a subject does not mean that you are not going to be good at it. So if there's something you've got a passion about, but you don't necessarily have access to that curriculum at your school, don't worry about it. You know, try and engage with the subject outside of your learning. You know, you can do lots of things to start to learn about particular subject areas. You can practice yourself. You get involved with shadowing. You know, there's just lots that you can do. You can join an art club. You can join a dance club. You can start your own at school if that subject isn't available. So there's just loads that you can do. And I think also about the portfolio, again, that was mentioned, you don't necessarily have to have work around the subject that you're applying for within your portfolio. You need to show references to it and an understanding of it, but you don't have to have that kind of work in it. What universities are looking for are students who are engaged with the subject that they're interested in. They want to see what kind of a creative journey you are on. So the portfolio is really a window into your mind, if you like. So don't forget to show a range of work. Don't forget to be brave in your portfolio as well. That's what universities want. They want brave, creative practitioners. So, you know, do take a risk. Definitely, we don't want to see all the portfolios looking like each other. So, you know, don't be afraid if you feel that you walk to a little bit of a different beat or your work is quite different. That is something that should be celebrated and, you know, that we're looking for. And the other thing about a portfolio review at the UK is that most universities, they don't just look at your portfolio. They're actually going to have a conversation with you about it, and you're going to have the opportunity to talk about it and what your influences are and what inspires you, you know, what you want to get out of the course and what you want to contribute to it. So it is really a jumping off point for a conversation. And, you know, lastly, don't forget, they don't expect it to be perfect. If it was, why would you be going to university in the first place? You know, you're going to university to pick up new skills and to develop your ideas. So it's a really exciting landscape for young people who are interested in the creative industries.
Thanks, Adrian. And Sophie, is there anything you wanted to add from your side, from Goldsmiths?
Yes, also agree with everything that Adrienne said, and absolutely to take risks in your portfolio, and also remembering that if you're interested in an arts area that doesn't require portfolio, but where the university is still going to look at your personal statement, is to remember that your personal statement, we also want to know about who you are within that personal statement, you know, your love and joy for the subject area, but also what do you do outside of your subject area that shows that you're an engaged individual in sort of arts and the creative area, if that's what you're specifically applying to. And I also actually just wanted to pick up from one of the questions that we've received, which was, if you don't study anything related to creativity, can you still work in that sector? And I think this also relates to what Karen was talking about earlier in terms of some of the skill sets that you're able to develop and how people work collaboratively together. So yes, if you don't study a specific creative degree, that doesn't mean that you can't find work within the creative sector. There is needs for various different skill sets. And of course, you can then learn whilst you're working in a different position. And just on a personal note, I want to mention that also works in the other direction. So you can study a creative subject area, but still end up working in a sector that maybe doesn't quite relate to your degree. My example would be, I studied classical singing for 3 years. However, I've been working in the higher education industry for around about 8 years, but it's those transferable skills you get as a university student, which is things like public speaking or working on presentations and report writing and developing professional work skills, that actually mean you can still apply them into different sectors, even if it doesn't relate to your degree.
That's really, really good advice. Thank you. Thanks so much, Sophie. And I see we've had some questions as well around actually finding work in the UK, particularly if you don't have sponsorship. So I might start on that one, and if any other of our panel want to come in and add anything, please do. But what I would say is that the graduate route visa, which I mentioned at the beginning of today's webinar, and I've left a link for you in the chat box, is an unsponsored route. So what that means is that you don't have to have found a suitable job in order to apply. So once you do find a suitable job, you may be able to switch to a skilled work visa and remain in the UK after your 2 or 3 years have come to an end. So hopefully that answers the question a bit. So the graduate route visa is for you to remain in the UK after you've graduated to look for work or to work. So it gives you that little sort of grace period there as well. I don't know if anybody else had anything to add on that, but Adrian, maybe.
Just sort of building on that, in terms of employability services that are offered at university, they don't end on the day that you graduate either. You know, I know at Falmouth, for example, we welcome students back for life for careers advice and guidance. So, you know, once you are a member of that community, you will always be a member of that community.
Thanks very much, Adrian. We do have 5 minutes. We'll wrap up soon. So if you have any other questions, please do put them in. I see there's one for Simona asking if she ever gets tired of drawing. A personal question there. I don't know if you're happy to answer. It sounds like you do a lot of drawing. So yeah.
Yeah. You don't take breaks. You have to take breaks, and to avoid burnout, always go back to what makes you happy. And yeah, go for a walk and then come back to it. The work will still be there.
That's good advice for all of us, I think. Thanks, Simona. And Karen, I know there hasn't been a specific question for you here, but if there were any kind of closing comments you wanted to say from your experience in the sector at all, not to put you on the spot, but just to give you the chance.
Well, I would just say it's such a fast-changing sector at the moment. There's lots of new opportunities, and however it looks at the moment, I'm sure it will look very different in a few years' time. I mean, it's strange to think that some of the technologies that we use every day now have only been around for a few years. We've only all been using them for a few years, and so the demand, the creative sector is just going to keep growing, and there's going to be new opportunities and new jobs, and it's a really exciting industry to be in. And the courses are developing, and the skills that students are learning on their courses now will set them on a great path for the future.
It's a really good place for us to end. So thanks very much, Karen. And I suppose my closing thing would actually be to mention the UK's new alumni network. So it's called Alumni UK, and it's for anybody who was an international student in the UK at some point in their education journey. And we have an online platform where international alumni can network and learn from one another, but we also connect them quite regularly with sort of career support and employers also back home, so not just in the UK, but in their country of origin as well. So that's just something to bear in mind, that is there as part of the UK offer should you choose to study in the UK as well, of course, as all of the career support that both Adrian and Sophie have mentioned today. So I think we'll call it a day there. I realise it's quite late for everybody, so thanks so much for giving this hour of your time. I hope that those of you who have come along have found something there that's useful to you and inspired you in your next steps, whether it be studying or working. And we will follow up with everybody with the slides and with the recording from today and some useful information for you as well. Thanks to Adrian, to Sophie, to Simona, and to Karen as well. And thanks to my colleague Semra, who's been helping us as well with all the technical side of this. And we hope to see you all at an event soon. Have good evenings, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye.